I stood in the middle of our living room holding her second phone. Not her real one, the one she always left lying around so casually. No, this was the other one, the one I found buried inside a gym bag she hadn't touched in months. The screen was still warm, the last message glowing bright. Can't wait to see you again tonight, baby. Usual spot? The words twisted something deep in my gut. But I didn't flinch. Not yet. This wasn't rage. This wasn't even heartbreak. It was colder, cleaner. Like a fuse burning quietly toward a pile of dynamite. Her name is Rachel. My wife. For 5 years, we built a life that looked good enough from the outside to fool anyone. But while I had been busy fixing the gutters, mowing the lawn, and saving up for a new kitchen she said she dreamed of, Rachel had been slipping away, one secret at a time. I sat down at the edge of the couch, the phone heavy in my hand, and scrolled. Photos, videos, messages, plans, meetings that weren't meetings. A second life stitched together with careful lies and just enough attention to keep me from looking too closely. I didn't scream. I didn't smash the phone. I smiled. Because Rachel thought she was clever. Because Rachel thought I was stupid. Because Rachel had no idea I was done playing the part of the loyal, clueless husband. I spent the next 2 days in silence. Calm. Focused. I ordered a camera disguised as a smoke detector and installed it right above our bed, the bed where she used to fall asleep in my arms before her late work nights became too frequent to ignore. I found out she had a standing meeting every Thursday night at a small rental house across town, a place I had paid for without even knowing it, through some bank transfers she disguised as student loans for her cousin. Thursday came faster than I thought. Rachel dressed carefully in front of the mirror, her lips painted a shade too red, her perfume heavy in the room. She hummed a little under her breath as she tossed a small overnight bag into the trunk of her car. No kiss goodbye. No explanation. Perfect. I waited 20 minutes after she left. Then I drove, not after her, no, but to the little rental house where all her little fantasies were about to burn down. I didn't go inside. Not yet. I had something special planned first. On the bed, I left a simple box. Inside, copies of her text messages, screenshots of her calendar, photos from the hidden camera. Everything laid out neatly like evidence in a trial. I left a small note on top in handwriting she'd know immediately was mine, smile for the camera. Your life is about to get interesting. Then I slipped out, locked the door behind me, and waited nearby, watching from my car with the camera feed live on my phone. 15 minutes later, Rachel arrived. She wasn't alone. The man with her was older, balding, a stomach straining against his dress shirt. Definitely not what she used to call her type. But apparently standards change when secrets grow. They stumbled inside, laughing, not noticing the box right away. I watched as Rachel's eyes finally landed on it. Her smile froze. She whispered something sharp to him. He stepped back like he had touched something burning. Then panic exploded across both their faces. She grabbed the papers, flipping through them, her hands shaking. He tried to pull her away, mouthing something frantic, but she tore free, running through the house as if she could somehow undo what had already been done. I leaned back against my seat, the cool satisfaction blooming through me. And just when Rachel thought it couldn't get worse, just when she thought maybe they could slip away, sweep this under the rug, 2 squad cars rolled silently up to the curb. Because it wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just cheating. Rachel had been helping her boyfriend launder money through fake contracts tied to her job. Contracts signed in my name. She hadn't just broken my heart. She had dragged me into a federal crime without a second thought. I watched through the hidden camera as the front door was kicked open, as officers poured inside, shouting orders. I watched as Rachel dropped to her knees, screaming my name, looking around wildly like I was about to swoop in and save her. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. Rachel believed she had everything under control, until I left that little surprise on the bed before her secret meeting. She had no clue her life was already crashing down around her. And as they cuffed her and dragged her out into the cold night, I finally understood something. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Rachel's screams echoed down the street as the police dragged her out the front door. I sat in my car, Engine off, windows cracked just enough to hear everything. She wasn't calling for the man she betrayed me with. She was calling for me. Over and over. Like I was supposed to appear, sweep her into my arms, and make the nightmare go away. I didn't move. The man, his name was apparently Doug, a laughable name for an even more pathetic creature, tried to run. I watched him bolt through the side door like a panicked rat, only to be tackled to the ground 3 feet from freedom. He cried out, some high, broken noise, pleading ignorance, blaming Rachel, blaming everyone but himself. The officers weren't interested in negotiations. It was over fast. 2 sets of cuffs. 2 broken people shoved into separate cruisers. 2 ruined lives. And me, standing just beyond reach, invisible and calm. The irony tasted better than revenge. I waited until the cruisers pulled away before I walked into the rental house. No need to rush. No need to hide. The place smelled like cheap cologne and desperation. The air thick with the aftertaste of betrayal. I took my time gathering the rest of the evidence: Rachel's second phone, a set of fake invoices left carelessly on the coffee table, even a burner laptop half hidden under a pile of dirty laundry. Sloppy. Careless. Like she thought she was untouchable. I wasn't planning to leave a mess. No, I was meticulous. I made sure every piece of dirt tied back to Rachel and Doug. I wiped everything clean of my own fingerprints. I wasn't just ending our marriage, I was erasing myself from the wreckage they created. I made one last sweep through the bedroom. That bed, our bed, the one she had defiled without a single thought for the man who built her world. I almost laughed at how absurd it was, the way people thought betrayal looked like wild passion or heated arguments. No. Betrayal was boring. Quiet. Mundane. A glance over the shoulder. A half-lie spoken with a sweet smile. That's all it took to poison everything. Before I left, I did one final thing. I opened her overnight bag, the one she had packed with such giddy care earlier that evening, and found the little black dress she wore to hook him in. I took out a pair of scissors, mine, from home, because of course she thought she could still use my things without consequence, and I shredded it to pieces. Slowly. Methodically. By the time I was done, it looked like ashes had rained across the floor. I stepped outside, locked the door behind me, and tossed the key into the nearest storm drain. Rachel wouldn't be coming back here. Not tonight. Not ever. Back at our house, it was silent. The kind of silence that presses against your skin, makes your ears ring. I stood in the doorway for a long time, staring at the life I thought we shared. The pictures on the walls. The shoes kicked off by the door. The smell of her shampoo lingering in the air. I wasn't angry. Anger would have been easier. Cleaner. Something to scream out, burn through, survive. What I felt instead was worse. It was this cold, endless hollowness. A deep canyon inside me where trust, love, and hope used to live. Rachel had carved it out with every lie she told, every time she smiled and said I love you with someone else's sweat still drying on her skin. I poured myself a drink I didn't want and sat in the armchair we used to fight over. I stared at the wall until the room blurred around the edges. Until reality bent and twisted into something unrecognizable. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered without thinking, too tired to care. Who the hell do you think you are? Rachel's voice, raw and furious, snarled through the speaker. You think you're smart? You think you can do this to me? There it was. Not regret. Not an apology. Just rage. Pure, blinding rage. I didn't do anything you didn't ask for, I said quietly, almost conversationally. You're going to regret this, she hissed. I'll make sure of it. You think you've won? You think you're some kind of hero? I smiled into the empty room. No, I said. I'm not the hero in your story, Rachel. I'm the ending. I hung up before she could say another word. Her world was crumbling. And for once, she was being dragged under without me there to save her. And tomorrow would bring the real reckoning. Because I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Morning hit like a slap across the face. The sunlight spilling through the blinds didn't feel warm. It felt surgical, harsh. As if it was dissecting everything in this house down to the bones. I sat there in the same chair, untouched, the untouched drink now watery and forgotten beside me. My phone sat on the arm of the chair, silent for once, but not for long. They started early. Calls, messages, Voicemails. From Rachel's sister. Her best friend. Even her boss. I didn't answer any of them. The narrative had already started spinning out of control, and Rachel, of course, was at the center of it, stitching herself a new victim costume before the ashes of her betrayal had even cooled. She wasn't cheating. No. According to the versions being whispered and screamed into my voicemail, she was lonely, confused, misunderstood. The man wasn't her lover. He was just a friend helping her through a tough time. And me? I was the villain. The abusive, neglectful husband who had driven her into someone else's arms. It was almost impressive how fast she flipped the script. I let it happen, because the next move wasn't supposed to come from me. It was supposed to come from her. Right on cue, around noon, my phone buzzed again. This time, a text from Rachel herself. Short, sweet, venom wrapped in honey. We need to talk, face to face. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. An hour later, I heard the front door open. Not knock, not ring, open. She still had a key. I sat perfectly still as Rachel stepped inside like she owned the place, her hair pulled back into a tight ponytail, sunglasses hiding the wreckage I knew must have been written across her face. She didn't say hello. She didn't even look ashamed. She slammed the door behind her and crossed the room in 3 strides, her heels stabbing into the floor like accusations. You think you're clever? She spat, ripping her sunglasses off and throwing them onto the coffee table. You think setting me up makes you the good guy here? I didn't answer. Just watched. Her hands were shaking, not with fear, but fury. Raw, dangerous, ugly fury. You destroyed my life, she said, voice trembling with how much she hated me in that moment. Over what? Some stupid mistake? Some little fling? I leaned back in the chair and folded my arms. Little fling? I repeated, voice low. You could have forgiven me. She shrieked, her voice climbing into a register that made the walls seem to hum. We could have worked through it. But no, you had to act like a vindictive little brat and ruin everything. She was pacing now, back and forth, her arms slicing the air with every bitter word. You think this makes you a man? Watching me get arrested? Watching them shove me into a cop car like some criminal? You were a criminal, I said quietly. That stopped her cold. For the first time, a flicker of something, not guilt, not yet, but uncertainty, crossed her face. You dragged me into federal fraud, Rachel. You signed my name to fake contracts. You used our money to cover your tracks. You didn't just cheat on me, you tried to bury me with you. She laughed. A short, broken sound. You're overreacting, she sneered. It wasn't even that serious. You think they care about a few $1,000s? They don't even have real evidence. They have enough, I said. And they're going to have more after today. Rachel went still, her whole body vibrating with rage. You're pathetic, she hissed. No woman's ever going to love you after this. You think you're punishing me? You're punishing yourself. You're going to end up alone, miserable, paranoid, because no one will ever put up with your pathetic insecurity. It didn't even sting. Not anymore. I stood up slowly, towering over her. She flinched before she could stop herself. A tiny, involuntary jerk backward that she immediately tried to cover with more bravado. Get out, I said, voice flat and final. She opened her mouth, probably to unleash another torrent of bile. But something in my face must have warned her off. Instead, she grabbed her sunglasses with a violent swipe, stormed back to the door, and threw it open so hard it ricocheted off the wall. You'll regret this, she said again, almost like a prayer. I didn't answer. I watched her walk down the front steps and climb into her car, slamming the door so hard the whole frame shook. I watched her sit there for a long moment, fists clenched around the steering wheel, before finally peeling out and disappearing down the street. And when the house fell silent again, truly silent, I realized something strange. I wasn't sad. I wasn't broken. I felt free. But freedom, I knew, came with a price. And Rachel wasn't done trying to make me pay it. Not by a long shot. I spent the rest of that day in a strange, detached clarity. Like my mind was a surgeon's knife cutting through the wreckage Rachel left behind. I packed her clothes into trash bags without pausing to smell them or linger on memories. I cleared her makeup from the bathroom counter like I was scrubbing down a crime scene. Every trace of her went into the bags, her shoes, her books, the stupid little knickknacks she insisted we needed for energy flow or positive vibes or whatever excuse she used to spend my money. By sundown, her life was stuffed into 12 black plastic bags lined up on the porch like corpses. I changed the locks before the sun went down. She would find that out soon enough. But even as I stripped her from the house, I knew Rachel wasn't the kind of person who accepted defeat. Her ego couldn't handle it. She didn't just want to survive. She wanted to win, to crush me under her heel, to rewrite the story so she came out shining and I looked like nothing more than a bitter, crazy ex-husband. And she was already moving. I saw the first signs that evening when a knock rattled the front door. Not a cop, not a process server. Rachel's mother, Linda. A woman who had once called me the son she never had. Now standing on my porch, arms folded, mouth thin with disapproval. I opened the door and leaned against the frame, not inviting her in. She didn't bother with pleasantries. "You're ruining her life," Linda said, voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Rachel made mistakes, but she's still your wife. You don't just throw away family over a mistake." I laughed once, low and bitter. "She forged my name on federal documents," I said. "She tried to dump me into prison while she was screwing some washed-up loser behind my back." Linda flinched like I had slapped her. But not because I was wrong, because I was too loud about the truth. "She's going to fight you," Linda said. "She's going to take everything she can." I stepped closer, forcing her to tilt her chin up to meet my eyes. "She can try," I said. "But when the courts see the proof, they're going to bury her." For a second, just a flicker, fear crossed Linda's face. Maybe she thought Rachel was just cheating. Maybe she hadn't known about the crimes. Or maybe she did know and just didn't care. Either way, it didn't matter. I closed the door in her face before she could say another word. That night, Rachel went nuclear. She unleashed a social media storm like nothing I had ever seen. Posts full of smiling pictures of us, long captions about how heartbroken she was that our marriage had fallen apart because of my emotional distance and unreasonable jealousy. She painted herself as the victim, the abandoned wife, the woman wronged by a cold, cruel man who didn't appreciate her. And people, idiots who didn't know a damn thing about the truth, started rallying to her side. I watched it unfold without saying a word, because I wasn't going to fight her lies with more lies. I had something stronger. Evidence. Court dates were coming. Investigations were underway. Rachel was thrashing because she could feel the ground crumbling beneath her feet. I stayed silent publicly. Privately, I gathered every scrap of documentation I had into a file so thick it needed a binder clip to hold it together. Emails, texts, financial records, photos, videos, audio clips, the works. Rachel didn't know it yet, but she was already standing in front of a firing squad, and she had loaded the guns herself. Around midnight, just when the house finally settled into a dead, oppressive stillness, my phone buzzed one more time. Another message from Rachel. "This isn't over. You don't get to just walk away from me." I stared at the words for a long time, feeling nothing. No anger, no fear, just a cold, measured certainty. She was right about one thing. This wasn't over. But it wasn't going to end the way she thought. Not by begging. Not by forgiveness. Not even by revenge. This was going to end on my terms. And when it did, Rachel would finally understand what real consequences looked like. By the next morning, Rachel had already made her next move. One that even I hadn't fully predicted. She filed for a restraining order. Not against Doug. Not against anyone involved in her mess. Against me. The paperwork arrived by courier, crisp and official, demanding that I stay away from her residence, the very house I was sitting in, the one I paid for, the one she had abandoned to go live out her secret second life. Rachel wasn't trying to protect herself. She was trying to seize control. If the restraining order stuck, she could claim the house by default, paint herself as the poor abused wife who couldn't even return to her own home without fear. She wasn't just fighting me now, she was fighting for my entire life. I sat at the kitchen table, the paper trembling slightly between my fingers, not because I was scared, but because the pure audacity of it hit like a lightning strike. Rachel wasn't trying to survive anymore. She was trying to erase me. But she had made one fatal mistake. She underestimated how far I was willing to go to defend myself. I called my lawyer, Mark Benson, a man who had the voice of a funeral director and the mind of a chess grandmaster. By noon, Mark had the whole restraining order ripped apart. He filed a countermotion with evidence stacked so high Rachel's lies couldn't even breathe under it. The court date was expedited. She was going to have to stand up and try to explain herself under oath, surrounded by evidence she couldn't twist or Photoshop or sob-story her way out of. But that wasn't even the best part. Mark smiled grimly across the table at me, tapping a pen against the file he had assembled. "She's going to be served today," he said. "At her boyfriend's place. The rental house. The very same place where she had thought she was invincible." There was a sick, poetic symmetry to it that I couldn't deny. I didn't go watch it happen. I didn't need to. Later, a friend from the department, unofficially, of course, sent me a photo. Rachel standing on the front porch, hair a mess, makeup smeared, clutching the papers in one hand and screaming at the officer who served her. Doug was lurking behind her, half-dressed, looking like he wanted to evaporate into thin air. The caption underneath the photo said simply, "Queen dethroned." That night, the text started again. A flood this time. Not threats. Not rage. Apologies. Begging. Rachel pivoted so fast she almost gave me whiplash. She told me she loved me. She told me she made mistakes. She told me we could fix it if we just talked. She said I was ruining not just her life, but my own, by holding on to bitterness. She even sent old photos, ones of us laughing on vacations, ones she thought might crack open my defenses. I didn't respond, not once, because this wasn't about love anymore. This wasn't about mistakes. This was about power, the only thing Rachel had ever truly worshipped. And now she was watching it slip out of her fingers like sand. The silence drove her crazy. She left voicemails crying, whispering, begging, bargaining. Then, when no response came, the rage returned. "You're nothing without me," she spat into the phone one night, her voice raw and shaking. "You're a coward. You're a spineless little worm. You'll die alone and everyone will forget you existed." Projection was a powerful thing. I saved every single message, every single word. The next time we stood in court, I was going to burn her to the ground with her own flames. But part of me, the small, quiet part that still remembered who Rachel used to be, felt something deeper than anger. Pity. She had built her kingdom on lies and half-truths, believing it would last forever. She had no idea it was already in ashes around her feet. And the worst part? Rachel still thought she could claw her way back. She hadn't realized yet that the person she was fighting wasn't the loyal, forgiving man she used to know. That man was dead. The one she faced now was someone she had created, one lie at a time. And he wasn't playing to hurt her feelings. He was playing to end her. Court day didn't feel real until I walked into that freezing room and saw Rachel sitting there across from me. No makeup. No jewelry. Just a thin, wrinkled sweater and jeans, the costume of a broken woman fighting to survive. She didn't look at me when I entered. She kept her head bowed, hands clenched tight in her lap, performing grief so perfectly it almost made me laugh out loud. Almost. I took my seat at my lawyer's side without acknowledging her. Because that's all she was now, another obstacle to clear. The judge entered. Cases were called. Papers shuffled. Voices droned. When they finally called ours, Rachel stood up so fast her chair skidded backward across the floor with a screech. It drew every eye in the room. Good. Let them watch. Mark handled most of the speaking for me at first. Calm. Precise. He laid out everything like a surgeon exposing rot under healthy-looking flesh. The fake contracts. The fraudulent signatures. The hidden bank accounts. The recorded conversations where Rachel joked about fixing things if I ever caught on. Rachel didn't blink. Not at first. She waited, sitting small and hunched, her hands twisting a tissue until it tore into shreds. And then, when it was finally her turn to speak, she stood up slowly as if weighed down by tragedy itself. Her voice was soft, trembling. She painted a masterpiece of lies. She spoke of loneliness, of neglect, of desperation. She said she felt abandoned after my coldness and emotional cruelty. She said Doug was an emotional support during a dark time, nothing more. She said the financial fraud was a mistake born from fear that I would leave her destitute, without love, without safety. She cried. Actual tears? I almost applauded. She was even better at lying under oath than I thought. For a moment, just a sliver of one, I felt the weight of those tears shift the room, pulling at the judge, the audience, the clerk, all those strangers who didn't know her the way I did. Rachel's greatest weapon was always the same. She could make you want to believe her, but she hadn't counted on the evidence. Mark stood up with a small, almost pitying smile and played the first recording. Rachel's voice, clear as glass, laughing about how easy it was to forge the paperwork, joking that I was too stupid to ever find out. Her words cut through the courtroom like a scalpel. Her laughter, high, sharp, cold, turned heads. One recording after another, one lie after another, exposed under the fluorescent lights. By the time Mark finished, you could feel the change in the room, the sympathy draining away from her like blood from a wound. Rachel sat frozen. Her mouth worked soundlessly, trying to find some excuse, some new version of the story that would save her. But there was no patching this. No fake tears strong enough to fix the image of her laughing about betraying the man sitting silently across from her. The judge didn't take long. Restraining order denied. Immediate separation of assets granted. Rachel's financial records opened for full forensic investigation. And best of all, the judge ordered a preliminary criminal hearing for the fraud. Rachel turned to me then, finally. Not with anger. Not with sadness. But with sheer, burning hatred. She wasn't crying anymore. She was drowning. As I walked past her out of the courtroom, she hissed under her breath, low enough that only I could hear. You think this is over? You have no idea who you're dealing with. I paused just for a second. Not because I was scared. Because it was funny. She still didn't get it. I wasn't dealing with her anymore. She was dealing with me. And she was about to find out how deep that hole could go. Rachel's hatred didn't die in the courtroom. It mutated. By the time I got home, my phone was already buzzing with new threats, not from her directly, but from numbers I didn't recognize. Fake accounts. Burner phones. Anonymous messages dripping with carefully crafted venom. You'll lose everything. Your career's next. People will find out what you really are. It didn't scare me. It just confirmed exactly how desperate she had become. I turned off my phone. Sat in the dark for a long time. Let the silence settle around me like armor. I thought maybe she would slink away after the courtroom humiliation. Maybe she'd realize it was over. But I had forgotten the one thing Rachel couldn't survive: irrelevance. The next morning, the first email hit my work account. A neat little package sent to my HR department. Anonymous, of course. Inside were fabricated reports of harassment, cooked-up emails supposedly written by me, even screenshots doctored to make it look like I had been involved in shady side deals. A full character assassination attempt, hand-delivered to my job. Rachel didn't want just to ruin our marriage. She wanted to erase me from my own life. HR called me into a meeting within the hour. I sat across from them, calm, watching them shift nervously in their seats as they explained the sensitive nature of the allegations. Then I handed them a second folder, thicker, heavier, filled with proof. Proof of Rachel's criminal case. Proof of her fabrications. Proof that she had both the motive and the history of forging documents. Mark had prepared it all in advance, anticipating exactly this kind of dirty move. By the end of the meeting, their tone had changed entirely. I wasn't the suspect anymore. I was the victim. The investigation turned. Quietly, professionally, but fatally for Rachel. The fake email addresses were traced. The IPs led straight back to her. Not Doug. Not a random friend. But Rachel herself. Within 48 hours, I had a letter from HR clearing me completely. Within 72 hours, Rachel had a warrant for cyber harassment added to her growing list of legal disasters. And the cherry on top? The firm Rachel used to work for, Brightmark Agency, got wind of everything. They sued her for fraud. Hard. I didn't even have to lift a finger. Rachel's entire professional life, the career she had lied, cheated, and stepped over people to build, collapsed like a sandcastle under a black tide. But the real masterpiece came later that week. I came home one night to find a package on my porch. No return address. Just my name handwritten. I carried it inside carefully, half expecting some desperate act, maybe a pile of smashed photos, maybe a last, pathetic attempt at guilt-tripping. Instead, inside the box was a single object. Her wedding ring. Twisted. Bent almost in half. And a note, no more than 3 words, scrawled in the sharp, angry handwriting I knew too well. You destroyed me. I sat there staring at it, feeling nothing. No victory. No satisfaction. Not even anger. Just a hollow understanding. Rachel had destroyed herself. I had only held up the mirror and made her look. And as far as I was concerned, the only thing left to do was finish what we had started. Legally, surgically, and without mercy. The final hearings were coming. The final decisions about the house, the accounts, the future. Rachel thought she had seen the worst of me. She had no idea. The real ending hadn't even started yet. The final hearing date was set for a Thursday morning, a detail that seemed almost poetic. Thursday, the day she used to sneak out, perfume herself in Betrayal, smile at her phone while I slept. Now it would be the day everything she built on lies would be taken away, piece by piece, right in front of her. When I walked into the courthouse, Rachel was already there, sitting rigidly at the plaintiff's table. This time there were no crocodile tears, no trembling hands, no tragic sweaters. She wore a stiff, cheap business suit, one size too big, like she was trying to shrink inside it, and she stared straight ahead with dead eyes, refusing to look at me. Doug wasn't there. Doug had cut her loose weeks ago, right after the fraud charges started piling up. He dumped her like a burning match, leaving her to take the fall alone. Her lawyer, some frantic, underpaid woman named Susan, was clearly out of her depth. She whispered frantically in Rachel's ear, flipping through a mangled stack of papers that looked less like evidence and more like a desperate Hail Mary. The judge didn't waste time. He read the financial forensics aloud, his voice slicing through the room, the fake accounts, the forged documents, the stolen funds. Every word was a hammer blow, and Rachel flinched at each one, tiny, almost imperceptible jerks, like her body was betraying the iron control she was clinging to. When it came time for her to speak, she stood up slowly, clutching the table for balance. She started, voice cracking. I was scared. I made mistakes. But I never meant to hurt anyone. The courtroom stayed silent. Cold. Unmoved. She looked at me then, finally, fully, and for the first time in months, I saw it. Real fear. Not of prison. Not of losing money. But fear of irrelevance. Fear that I wasn't going to fight her anymore, that I was just going to let her fall without even bothering to catch her. She tried to pivot. Fast. I still love him, Rachel said, her voice rising in fake emotion. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm willing to fix this. To fix us. The words hung there, heavy, cloying, desperate. For a heartbeat, the room seemed to wait to see if I would respond. If I would break. I stood slowly, buttoned my jacket, looked her straight in the eyes. There is no us, Rachel, I said, my voice cutting through the silence like a scalpel. There's just what you did, and what's left of you after it's all stripped away. The judge didn't even flinch. He ruled immediately. Full divorce. Effective immediately. House awarded solely to me. Rachel liable for repayment of the fraud. With interest. Criminal case moving to trial. Protective order issued barring her from any contact with me. The gavel came down like thunder. Rachel didn't move at first. She just stood there, frozen, staring at the wreckage she had built with her own hands. Susan tried to pull her toward the exit, whispering frantically, but Rachel shrugged her off with a sharp, violent jerk. She turned to me one last time, her mouth twisted into something between a grimace and a smile. You'll miss me, she said, almost conversationally. You think you've won. But you'll wake up one day and realize you lost everything. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. She already knew she was wrong. Because for the first time in years, standing there in that cold courtroom, I didn't feel trapped or cornered or broken. I felt clean. Free. Whole. I watched her stumble out of the courtroom, a shadow of the woman who used to smirk while hiding a second life behind my back. She was the architect of her own downfall. And she was the only one left to live in the ruins. The days after the final hearing felt surreal. For the first time in years, my house didn't feel like a museum of half-truths and broken promises. It felt empty, and that emptiness was a relief, not a wound. I changed everything. New furniture. New locks. New routines. I scrubbed her fingerprints off my life like poison. There wasn't a single room left that whispered her name anymore. But Rachel wasn't finished. Not yet. 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized, a letter arrived. No return address. No name. Just a thick, heavy envelope slid through my mail slot like a whisper from the past. I should have thrown it away. I should have burned it without looking. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table, the new kitchen table, one she'd never touched, and opened it. Inside were photos. Hundreds of them. Rachel had printed out every photo of us she could find: vacations, birthdays, holidays, lazy Sundays curled up on the couch. She had written little notes on the back of each one. Remember this? We were happy here. You promised forever. Page after page of a fantasy she had already murdered. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even nostalgia. It was a weapon. A desperate, sick attempt to drag me back into her orbit by forcing me to relive the ghost of the life we almost had. At the bottom of the stack, there was a letter. Handwritten. Trembling, messy, furious. You think you're free. You're not. You'll never be. Every woman you meet will see the bitterness in your eyes and know you're broken. Every time you smile, you'll feel me laughing underneath it. Every time you love, you'll remember how easy it was for me to lie to you. You'll never escape me. There it was. The truth she could never admit out loud before. Not love. Not regret. Just control. Rachel didn't miss me. She missed having power over me. I tore the letter in half without finishing it. Dropped it into the trash without ceremony. Buried it under coffee grounds and broken eggshells, fitting somehow. The next few days, Rachel escalated. She started showing up at places I went. The grocery store. The gas station. Once, even outside my gym, leaning against her car like some broken statue, pretending it was all a coincidence. She never spoke. Never got close enough to technically violate the protective order. But her eyes followed me everywhere. Empty, hollow, burning with that same toxic need to be seen, to be remembered, to haunt. It didn't work. The first few times, I felt the old stirrings of anger. Then nothing. Rachel wasn't some vengeful goddess rising from the ashes. She was just a sad, broken creature clinging to the ruins of something she herself had destroyed. And the more she tried to get a reaction, the more pathetic she became. Eventually, the police had a quiet word with her. A final warning. One more stunt and she would be arrested again, this time for harassment. After that, the sightings stopped. The letters stopped. The ghost finally, mercifully, faded. Rachel had lost. Not loudly. Not spectacularly. Quietly. Pathetically. Exactly the way she had lived the last year of our marriage. Desperate to pretend she was in control, even as everything slipped through her fingers. And me? For the first time in years, I stood at the edge of my life, truly alone. But not lonely. Not empty. Free. It's been 6 months since Rachel vanished from my life. Not physically, her name still pops up now and then, whispered by mutual acquaintances, attached to new scandals, new humiliations, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, she's gone. Whatever part of me that once needed her, missed her, mourned her, it's dead now. Buried deep under the weight of everything she revealed herself to be. I rebuilt my life the way a man rebuilds a house after a fire. Carefully. Brick by brick. No shortcuts. No mercy for the past. The house is mine now through and through. Every picture on the wall, every piece of furniture, every quiet evening spent without looking over my shoulder, it's mine. My career? Stronger than ever. Turns out when people see you survive something that dirty and come out cleaner than the one who wronged you, they respect you. A few even said they envied the way I handled it. I don't correct them. They think it was strength. It wasn't. It was survival. The truth is, what Rachel did to me didn't just break my marriage. It broke my illusions. It burned down all the pretty lies about love, loyalty, and forever. And standing in the ashes, I found something I never expected: freedom. Not the easy Hollywood kind. Not the kind you celebrate with beers and fireworks. The hard kind. The kind you earn one brutal step at a time, walking barefoot over broken glass until you're not bleeding anymore, just walking. Sometimes people ask if I'll ever date again. Maybe. Maybe not. But if I do, it won't be because I'm looking for someone to fix me, complete me, save me. I don't need saving. I learned the hard way that the only person who can ever really betray you is the one you hand your heart to without conditions. Next time, if there is a next time, the heart stays mine. Fully. Permanently. No blind trust. No stupid fantasies about meant to be. Just two people standing side by side or not standing together at all. Rachel taught me that. Probably the only real gift she ever gave me. If you're reading this because you're in the middle of your own war, your own betrayal, I'll tell you something no one else will. You don't need closure. You don't need apologies. You don't even need revenge. You just need to walk away without looking back. Let them drown in the ruins they built. Save yourself. Because the most brutal, beautiful truth is this. You were never the broken one. They were. And now, they get to live with it. Alone. Forever.